Lately I wish I found the sky. You punch your finger at me, it's all now white.
Hey folks, how you doing? Sorry about that. I had an auto changeover that didn't quite happen. So let's take a look and see what we can see here. There's my paint. There's my wall of things. And I'm trying out a new old setup today. So I ran into this problem where I had an extra camera kicking around that I thought might do a better job than just having my phone do it. And what ended up happening is it drew too much power from the computer, so I had to switch back to my old setup. So further proving the point, if it ain't broke, fix it till it is. So welcome to Shanth Enjeti Art. I am Shanth Enjeti. Like and subscribe. I'm going to be painting and working on a double page spread for my next art book, which is going to be a comic book. So it's going to be sequential art. And last time I was on this stream, I was working on it with horrible audio, just absolutely terrible audio. And the thing that I kind of ran into was how difficult it is to paint somebody on a horse. And as much as I would love to have solved that problem with you guys watching, I had to solve it on my own, just working with the thing in my lap. So here you go. So right now what I'm doing is I've figured out where everybody's going to be, and I figured out the figures, so to speak. And I'm going in and I'm putting together all of the different elements that I was able to get into this piece. So one of the biggest ones is the grimoire Necronomicon-esque book that this character has made off with during the rescue. So I'm just going in and kind of putting in the value and color so that the book is going to stand out and be the proper color. So I wanted to do a story when I'm doing this work, and one of the things I love to do is to create work that's kind of, you know, a little bit scary movie based, a little bit horror based. And so that's what's going on in this piece right here. So the book, I had so many things, including the main character that this, or I should say the co-main character that he is whisking away and rescuing. I had everything put together, and he ran out of arms. And I didn't know exactly how I was going to put everything together, and I finally came up with, he's going to hold the sword in his mouth. That's what's going to happen here, because it has to. It doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of, it's not exactly like he's holding a knife in his mouth, but he's a superhero, so he can do it. And so, here we go. So just putting in that value there. Everything with color and value for me is about delineating the different objects, and, you know, you can see that the stuff that you know, informs all of my work and that's around me are, you know, there's some pages of the book which are inspired by a lot of stuff that you see behind you right there. So when I go in and I do this stuff, there's a very clear kind of method to my madness, which is just making sure things stand out that need to stand out and making sure that it's readable. So this book is a big part of that. And you can do all kinds of, you know, interesting things when you're painting. Like for me, I like to think about, and I watch a lot of people on YouTube who do things like aging props. So taking a book and making it look old. And so that's one of the things that I've been kind of working on lately. Hey, how you doing, boss? Good to see you. That's right. Oh, terrific. Terrific. I think it says painting time. I think it was. It said painting dine. And I said, that sounds actually quite delicious. I like the idea of dining and painting. That's essential. But yeah, I mean, it's for me when I look at the people who do a lot of the prop stuff, and make horror props and all that kind of stuff. The thing I like about them is they're just paying attention to what, you know, will give things a little bit of texture. And precision it's a good thing, but do you really want a grimoire where you've got the book looks like it was just, you know, came off the press? And I think, you know, most of us would say no. Don't want to speak for anybody, but yeah, that's kind of my approach to doing this stuff, is thinking about the texture. So here's an example of where I'm going to take a white gel pen, which I do use every now and again. And I'm just going to use it to kind of... Let me get you in a little bit closer there. Here we go. Let's see if we can get that focused just a little bit better. There we go. That looks like it's going to hold. So we're going to go in on this thing. I'm going to show you really pretty up close. I'll go in and just kind of make that book have a little bit more of a wavy, broken look to it. And I don't mind if it kind of goes off the page right there, but the main thing I want to do is to kind of make sure there aren't any straight lines that don't need to be there. And so if I can do that, then it's going to give the world in the book and the book within the book all the more character. So I don't know if I'm going to, I'm going to probably yellow the pages, but the trick with that is you don't want to go too bright yellow where it looks neon. So I've got some yellow ochre here mixed in with a little bit of black paint, and so we'll see how that does. Let's see here. I probably should give this a little bit more time to dry. I might get myself into trouble here, but let's just, kind of see how it goes. All right. Not too bad. There we go. I'm going to leave a little bit of those flecks of light, but it's going to give me just enough shadowing to make it come together. Okay. Next is going to be filling in this character's hand. And so as I work and as I build up these values, sometimes a page like this will be a little bit of a stopping point for me. I'll get a little bit, I want it to be a great double page spread. I want it to be something that you get to this point in the book and you just kind of, I want it to take your breath away, and for it to be something that people really enjoy when they get to it. And when I get frustrated with it, I go, I want to be doing this a lot faster. I always remind myself that even though it's not as many panels, it's 2 pages. And so when you're working on something that's going to be 2 pages, you can allow yourself, that extra time. It's not like I'm doing one page here. And the world is going to be so much bigger. And so the purpose of this, let's see if I can get that into position. There we go. The purpose of this is really to expand the world and make it a more rich and more convincing place. So doing things like, how would this character's costume be affected by the fact that he's sitting on top of this giant, dog is a really complicated thing. So, it's it's an ongoing process of trying to figure this stuff out. But I have, good movies and good comics around me, so that helps a lot. And then, of course, watching fun stuff on YouTube is never a bad thing. I guess probably depending. I've been watching a lot of boxing lately. Actually, I've been watching a lot of amateur fights, and that's been kind of fun. But in addition to that, catching up on my horror movies and, watching some interesting stuff happening with regards to comics and with regards to illustration. So, and again, I'm just kind of defining a few things right now, bringing the forms out and seeing where it takes me. I do have a pretty decent idea of where I'm going to go with this project and how many pages I want it to be, but I want to introduce a couple of things into it that I haven't, that aren't going to be a feature of the main story, but I might have there be, depending on how it goes, I might have there be a short backup story that introduces a character that was in the last art book and whose creation was kind of shown in the last art book, so we'll see how that goes. There we go. But I hope everybody's having a good evening and getting some art in. Always a good thing. And if you just want to sit back and watch, you're more than welcome to do so. You don't have to paint, but if you feel the need, don't let me get in your way. So again, this paper will drink up the media really fast. It'll drink up the paint. Whoa, got that going a little bit too much. It will drink up the paint and kind of give you a little bit more of a, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is here, but sometimes it can make things drag a little bit, and I don't want that to happen. So I want to kind of make sure I get enough moisture onto the page and enough paint. So if you look off to the side right here, one of the things you're going to start seeing is another figure that I'm thinking about putting in here. So my first plan for this was to have it be sort of a horizontal tunnel. And that was interesting in terms of a first pass, but this is why I kind of handle this stuff, stream of consciousness. Because when I do my art books and I do my illustrations that way, I always get more interesting ideas as I work. And this was one of those examples of me having that happen where I went, well, why does this tunnel have to be horizontal when it could possibly be going vertically? So if you look in the background right here, I'm roughing in another figure. And that figure is going to be in perspective. So we're going to be looking down on this figure. There we go. And there we go. Now we're going to have some hair on this figure going back. There we go. And then this character is going to be, again, it's going to be a down shot in perspective. There we go. And then the next bit of it that's going to be a little bit trickier is going to be that it's going to be a vampire bat character. So we'll see how that goes. Let's see how this goes. There we go. So let me see if I can get my count right here. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I need another one in there. Don't need to have it be too close. And then the way that I'm doing the wings on these vampire bat creatures is I'm having them connect down into the tail right there. So there's going to be a little bit of a tail there. But again, you won't see it, but I need to know it's there because it helps me in terms of... Ooh, that is so shaky. It helps me in terms of how do I put this stuff together. So that's kind of the... Alright, camera, calm down. Let me see if I can make that a little bit better. I don't think that's going to help too much, come to think of it, but we'll give it a shot. So, if I can go in and get this to come together, we'll be good to go. And for me, this just makes for a much more dynamic piece, way more interesting. And again, this is the stream of consciousness stuff that, you know, kind of comes into your head when you're doing something on your own. I don't know if this would be possible if I was, you know, not the writer and the artist on this thing. And I've written, you know, comic books before, and I've, you know, done a lot of work on, you know, coming up with stories and figuring out where I want things to go. But I think the biggest thing is to, for me at the very least, is to create visuals that are going to be something that people will respond to. I mean, when I look at something like Evil Dead 2, I don't know that it's, you know, the greatest script in the world. I think it's amazing in terms of its invention. And so I start with the idea and the attitude that I want to make sure that I'm being as inventive as possible, and I want to make sure I'm being as creative as possible, and always thinking about the story and where it's going to go, but also thinking about it in terms of where can it go. Let me see here. There we go. There we go. That's coming together a bit. Now I gotta make sure that I don't go too dark with this. And so what I'm gonna, try to do is put a little bit of dark up top here so that I don't have to get too dark as I work down, but it'll still hold together. So there you go. Okay, so I've got that sorted out, and in terms of placement and where everything's going to go. So the next thing I think I'm going to do is work out where the bats are going to be. Now, when I started working on this piece, one of the things that was a factor for me was trying to get the... Let's see if I can make this happen here. Zoom way out there. There we go. I wanted to make sure that I got the characters to have a little bit more of a sense of drama. So this character is being attacked or being chased and hunted down by a vampire right there, and she has sent bats to attack, and they are biting her. So she gets bitten by these bats, and as a result causes our character some problem that leads us into the next bit of the story. So I want to make sure I've got those bats placed on there fairly well, and then we'll see where we go from there. So that's the next fun bit that I've been planning, and I'm really excited about that because the way this piece came together and the way a lot of the stuff that I do comes together, it allows me to put together it allows me to be very creative. So I look at an image or I look at a something that I've illustrated, and I ask myself, like, is that interesting? Like, is that working? And as a result, if I look at something, I don't care what the story is. Like, I know what story I have to tell, but the story has to change if the visuals aren't working for me. And I was looking at this piece, and I just thought, this is boring. Like, they just escape. Like, what's going to happen? Like, what happens next? And what is in this image that... I wanted this image to do two things. I wanted it to be able to be a poster on the wall, a double-page spread. I wanted it to tell a lot of story, but I also wanted it to be something that was vague enough to where if this was the only thing you saw of this book, that it was going to be like a Frazetta painting, where it was like a self-contained story within a bigger story. So it works as part of it, and it works as its own image. So it's a lot. It's a lot to put together. And as a result, I kind of had to push myself a little bit on it. Now, the character is not going to be bitten by any bats. The hero is not going to be bitten by any bats, but she is. The reason why she's being bitten by those bats is because she's a human and he's not. So that was another factor. Again, it's like everything's got a little bit of a storytelling bit. It's not just arbitrary. So here we go. And so I've got to figure out what she is supposed to look like. I do have a sketch of her somewhere, but I don't know where it is, so I'm going to have to flip through my sketchbook here. There we go. And let's see here. How did I design her? Okay. That makes sense. I'd love to show you this sketch, but you can't see it. So there you go. So I'm not able to. So let's see. Where can I put this here? All right. I'll do it this way. So here's my character, and I had hair coming out like that. Oh yeah, that's the bet there. So I wanted this character, when she's using her magic, to kind of transform into a vampire bat-like creature. And she's not like the kind of mindless minions that she has that I've shown in some of the other streams. She's much more humanoid, and she maintains her mental faculties, because if she was too much of a bat, it just wouldn't work for me. I just don't. It's like the thing with all this vampire werewolf mythos, and werewolves are coming, folks. Let me tell you, as Adam Hughes would say, it's in my contract with God that I got to draw werewolves, werewolves and gorillas. But if this character is going to still have power, to me, it doesn't make sense that she's all animal and not human. Like, you'll see that even in this vampire character that's reading from the grimoire in this book. This character is a lot more humanoid, has regular arms, doesn't have bat wings, and so that was really important to me to get the story to work. So I mean, again, it's it's all kind. Once you get into the realm of fantasy, it's all kind of relative. But for me, I like things to make a certain amount of visual sense, and I want them to be adventurous and cool and interesting and sexy and scary, but all of that stuff within a certain threshold that it's fun. Again, things like the Haunted Mansion, Hammer horror films, all of those things are touchstones for me. I think the same thing could be said for movies like Blade, which I'm obsessed with. And maybe even the Underworld series. I was watching a friend of mine talk about the Underworld series. I better make sure I don't put that on camera because I don't know if some of the sketches on that page are things I can put on YouTube. But well, actually I can, but it's nothing that serious. But part of the work I do is trying to organize everything I'm going to show, and if something's going to be I don't want to say a spoiler, but because I don't really think that's going to hurt the narrative too much. But if something is going to give something away that's going to be in a future piece, I don't want to show it. So there we go. We've got our creature. Now I'm going to do this just for myself, but if you're curious what my process is like, I'm going to go in, see if I can make that focus. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the camera here and then I'm going to move the painting over. That seems like it works a little bit better. So for myself, I'm going to go into this character's face, and I'm just going to do one note, two note. There we go. Just kind of rough in the eyes, just so I know where they are. There we go. And it's interesting because I can kind of get a further away view by looking at the camera that I've got on my screen. But you can kind of see where I've put the notation in for the eyes, and that just helps me to understand where the features are going to be. The more you draw and the more artwork that you make, one of the neat things about it is that you get more comfortable with just placing things. Like, you kind of see the figure in your head, and you just kind of put the stuff together. There we go. So when I'm drawing and I'm putting, the detail into these figures, sometimes it goes fast and I just rough things in and it works out really great. And then other times it's going to take me a little bit longer. I'm not as nervous when it takes longer as I used to be, because things do, once you get better at it, once you get comfortable drawing, things don't take as long. But, it is nice when they go fast. It's really nice. So I've got perspective here. I've got bats that are coming in from there. And I want to make sure those bats kind of look more Nosferatu-like than just regular bats. There we go. And then let's see what else I've got to do here. What do I need to do? It's kind of nice to have this further distance view of things. It really puts it in perspective, no pun intended. So I've got a dress there, I've got a figure, I've got this working. Next thing I want to think about is, let me move this so I can actually see it a little bit better. There we go. The next thing I want to think about is put in some more skeletons around here. And so I got myself a great piece of reference recently. I think it's from a video game. I don't know what the video game is, but I got myself some pink skeletons that are posable. So this right here is something I'm going to be using for reference, and I'm really happy with it. It's these great kind of creepy, see if it'll focus here. There we go. It's these great kind of creepy skeleton army creatures, and I get to use those. Actually, I should just Photoshop that in there, but no, I'm not going to do that. But I've got these great skeleton creatures that I can put together and put into the image, and use them as reference. And that also allows me to do and something that I'm excited about is I'm going to use, if I move the camera here a little bit, move that down. Whoa. There we go. I'm going to use this area right here to put some smaller skeletons in so that it really emphasizes that you're looking down. And again, this is just something that I wasn't even thinking about until, a day ago or something. And I thought, oh, what I could do is I could have them looking down, because for me, looking down a tunnel into something that's kind of coming after you is interesting. But the idea of, looking, back through a tunnel where all these things are coming after you and having it be, if you slide or you slip, you fall very far down to those things coming after you. I mean, it's classic. I was just watching Child's Play 2 recently, and they have the scene where Andy is climbing up in the toy factory trying to get off of the, get away from the doll. And it's on this kind of like luggage box ramp with all these little, rollers on it, and he just slips and he just kind of slides down, and right then you see the doll, you see Chucky pop up with the knife, and you're like, oh my gosh. So that's kind of the way I think about it when I'm working, is I think about what are those primal kind of scary things that we can put into this, having things coming after them, and they're trying to pass through this kind of, doorway into the next space. And so you can kind of see on the other side, if I move this way over, you can see where the skeletons are. And so that's my wall of skeletons that are going to be in this piece. And so that's, and the same thing goes with the dog. I mean, all of this stuff is coming from, well, you can see my paints there. All this stuff is kind of coming from my love of fantasy and monsters. There you go. I got a better view of it there. So it's a really detailed piece. And I'm kind of hoping to make, with a lot of the stuff I'm doing, I'm hoping to make prints of the stuff so they'll be available for people to purchase who want them. But that's kind of the secret for today. I mean, that's what I've been working on. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, there's so much about this process that I enjoy and I love, and I can't overstate it. It's just really great. It's great to see both of you guys here. Terrific. Fire away if you have any questions. I'm just after it right now. Just trying to figure out how to put this thing together. So there we go. I've got the leg there. And I'm going to move this over. There we go. But yeah, I mean, putting down those bright colors is a really fun part of it. It gives it such a rich, quality when you're drawing it, if you've got those contrasting colors. Yes, actually, I have. Well, I mean, I did, let's see, I've done nothing in this style. Like, this is a very, very new style for me. But for a couple of years before I did my 2 art books that are in this style, I, did the occasional comic book job, and I did the occasional concept art job. So I've definitely done some comic books, and as far as, yeah, I'm streaming. Yeah, okay. Go get your snacks. Sorry, my son was coming by. But yeah, I mean, I've done some comic book work. I did a Flash Gordon short story. I did self-published 2 comic books. Did an indie comic called Threshers, which is my first job at 17. And then, let's see, what else have I done? Some jobs that were completely insane. But the one that stands out to me the most, that I really feel like I learned a lot on, was a Flash Gordon 75th anniversary graphic novel I did a short story in, which was a lot of fun. My writer was Len Wein, who is the creator of Wolverine among many other, or co-creator of Wolverine among many other things. And so I've done my share of comic book stuff, but not, let me be clear, when I shouldn't have said I've done my share of comic book stuff. I've done my share of self-publishing and books, but I'm really looking forward to doing, my first real, big comic book project in a long time. So that's the fun part of it. So, I mean, in terms of the sense of what it's going to look like, I think you've probably already seen this stuff, but this is what the pages are going to be looking like. So, this right here, and I think I have one more. Yeah, that's right. This one right here. So, this is kind of where my stuff is right now when I'm doing this work. So, yeah, it's crazy. We'll see how it goes. But it's been a ton of fun to do. A lot of fun to do. Gosh, I've got so many different things going on right now. But yeah. And I've been, drawing comics on my own for my entire life. And that was the first art form that I fell in love with. And I just got really inspired by by just the kind of big indie movement that's happening in crowdfunding. In fact, I wouldn't have done my art books if it hadn't been for seeing what was going on in comics. So, and actually, you know what? I just forgot to mention that I did about 2 or 3 pages, I think, of sequential stuff as a warm-up for this in my second art book. And so, I don't know if you have that art book or not, but if you do, then you know what I'm talking about. And I'll have to... that stuff you can see on my Instagram, and you can see a lot of the artwork that's in there. I don't know how much of the sequential stuff I have in terms of on my Instagram, but I'm pretty sure I have some process stuff. There we go. Oh, excellent. Yeah, so if you send me a message on my Instagram, which is at Shanth Enjeti Art, same thing as I think it's the same thing as my YouTube, but I'm not positive. But at Shanth Enjeti Art, if you send me a message on there, I can get in touch with you about the art books. I've just sent some. Oh gosh, where's the last place I sent them? I think the last ones I sent out, I sent to France recently, so that was really fun. And yeah, it's one of those things we love doing. And then we're gonna probably have them be a part of the next campaign we do. So for my last campaign, which was for book 2, one of the perks you could get was book 1 and 2 perk. And so what I'm probably going to do with limited amounts, obviously, because we don't have, we don't have hundreds of copies, because we sell most of what we have every time we do a campaign. We sell more and more of them. But I'm probably going to do a book 1, 2, and 3 in my next campaign. So you can get art books 1, 2, and then also this book right here, which is both art book 3 and comic book issue 1. So it's got a lot going on for it. Alrighty. So right here, I just realized there's no way anyone could possibly see what I'm doing. But let's see if I can do this without the flicker. Sorry again for any motion sickness there. There we go. So this right here is, let me see if I can make that fade a little bit there. Does that help or does that make it worse? It does give it that kind of bluish quality there. There we go. So that right there is the face of the main character that I'm working on right now. And oh, excellent, terrific. Yeah, send me a message and we'll take care of you. We love doing that kind of stuff. And actually, for people who are ordering it right now, it's the same thing with my Patreon. People who become members of the Patreon get stickers, and I've been throwing them in the new orders for the books, just as a fun little bonus. And those stickers are, let's see here, are this one right here, which is for this crazy card set I'm working on, and then this one, which was actually a started out as a scan of a head sketch perk that someone bought with the last campaign. So I do have watercolor head sketch perks that you can get if someone wants original artwork, and then I also do head sketches inside of the art books if someone wants to buy it at that level. So every book gets signed, but some of them get extra perks. And there you go. Let's see here. There we go. And so one of the things that's a little bit difficult about working this way is getting, the pen to really do what I want it to do on the painted surface. It works pretty well, but these pens pick up a little bit of the gouache sometimes if I am sketching with them and I get a little bit careless working with them on wet paint. Sometimes the paint will slow down the flow of the pen. And so you can kind of see me having to go over the lines a little bit more as I work. So there you go. So yeah, that one is starting to come together. So that's kind of the plan going forward. I mean, the plan going forward is to make sure that I can kind of bring that level of quality that's in the art books into what I'm doing here. And come to think of it, let me see if I can put this a little bit more centered there. Come to think of it, while I'm streaming, or as I wrap up, because as much as I hate to not stream for very long, I'm starting to run out of energy. But let me see if I can get this to work. So this right here is, let's see here, there we go, art book 1. And this is what the quality looks like. And the quality of the comic book is going to be very much like this. So, let me move the camera back just a little bit. And there we go. Let's see how this works. There we go. So there's art book 1. And then this is the sort of repro quality of what these books look like. So it's got close-ups, and then it's got fitting the whole image on there. So all of this stuff, there's a little Guillermo del Toro Shape of Water, and creatures, Kaiju, Godzilla, King Kong. And so this is what book 1 looks like. And then book 2 that just came out. And sometimes I forget I have these books next to me to use as reference. But this is what book 2 looked like. And that character is on the cover. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And so this is what book 2 looks like. So I've already filled 2 campaigns. And I have to tell you, I love it. It's so much fun. I love self-publishing this stuff. Fulfillment is everything. So you can see that this character's first appearance was really in... Turn the book sideways, you can see the illustration a little bit better, but really was in this second art book. But his first story is going to be in this book, right, or in this book that I'm working on right now. So here's a look at some of my sequential stuff that I did in this book. It's a very different style, but you kind of get the idea. And then here's more sequential stuff that I did in this book. So putting this stuff together, werewolves have got to be a factor in this stuff. So I'm going to be doing a lot more werewolf stuff, but here's some more of the sequential work that I was doing. And then more werewolves, the moon in this one, and gigantic Frankenstein here, if I can get that to show up there. Gigantic Frankenstein, the sequel. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. You just reminded me. I forgot to mention that was from Ginger Snaps. Ah, great eye. I appreciate that. And I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. It's a really strange movie, but I love indie films. It kind of reminds me of what I like about Evil Dead 2, that it's got this really great, sense of them working on it and putting this thing together, by hand. And that's kind of how we do everything. My wife and I pretty much pack up every package we send out, handle the postage. I wrap up and bag and board and sign everything. That's just the way it is. Oh, yeah, I love Evil Dead. Well, I don't know if you can see if it's in... Is it in frame? No, it's not in frame. Hang on a second. I'm going to give you a little bit of a camera pan here so you won't see me. But if you look over here, you can see Ash from Evil Dead 2 right in frame there with a little tiny Necronomicon. So, yeah, I definitely collect. I love NECA stuff. You can see the Pan's Labyrinth fawn there. Guillermo del Toro is always very well represented. There you go. Excellent. So glad you see it. Terrific. And so, yeah, here's some more. Here's these pages in this book, which I don't know if you've seen these before, but these pages in this book were just so crazy detailed. These were just, again, 2 illustrations that I did for this. But, yeah, I was really happy with how these came out, referencing various, horror movies and zombie movies, but just, this one, I was happy with how it came out. And then a nod to Peter Cushing in honor of my friend Michael. Made sure to give myself a tombstone in there. Just sort of that, that artist tradition. You can also see the hand lettering, and I love doing hand lettering. And then that is the last image in the book, and then, of course, in all my books, there's always the behind-the-scenes stuff. So I love to show the process stuff, just like in these videos, but it's something a little bit more permanent that if people want to see, well, what do the sketches look like when you do these pieces? I make sure I get that stuff in there, showing the layout sketches, the lettering, and then these are super detailed. Like, this is a tiny sketch. This is the whole page. So this is an 8.5 by 11 page that's close up on this. So just to get a sense, there's my hand. This is a illustration of a face that was probably about this big, and I've blown it up so that you can actually see the texture of the paper, and I love doing stuff like that. So this one, and of course the last page, which I won't linger on too long, but is this cover image of this figure before I had painted the nightgown on it, which is something that I do in order to have a transparent nightgown. I always paint the figure and then work over it. But I do that a lot of times with my stuff, you know, just trying to figure out the anatomy first and then figuring out all of the sort of gear that goes on it and like how I want things to work. So yeah, this is art book 2, and it's a square bound book. And the reason why I point that out, there we go, it's a square bound book, and the reason why I point that out is because my plan for this comic book is to have a lot of behind the scenes art, a lot of standalone illustrations, and to print it up as a square bound, same exact quality, so it fits in the shelf next to these. So that's the plan, and that's what I'm looking to do. So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it, everybody, and it's always a blast, and I love getting questions in the chat here. So I'm gonna keep drawing and working, but I'm also gonna go and get some food so that I can keep doing what I'm doing. So take care, have a great evening, and thank you so much for checking it out, and I will see you